Hi, I'm David, a PhD student at Berkeley, and today I'd like to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh!, a classic children's playing card game. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was really popular in the early 2000s because it was also an anime on TV, alongside classics like Arthur, Berenstain Bears, and Pokemon. I don't really have time to get into the details of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works, but in general, you just fight other people's monsters with your own monsters. And this was really cool when you watched it on TV because the monsters would actually show up next to the players and fight each other. There's two main characters in Yu-Gi-Oh!, Yugi and Kaiba. And in case their Japanese names are hard to remember because they don't mean anything to you, Yugi means game, right? So the show Yu-Gi-Oh! Means king of games. And spoiler alert, but Yugi, whose main name means game, turns out to be the king of games. And Kaiba means seahorse or hippocampus. So that's a cool fact you can go home and tell your kids, or for some of your grandkids. Now, both Yugi and Kaiba had a signature card. For Yugi, it was the Dark Magician, and for Kaiba, it was a Blue Eyes White Dragon. And if you had either of these cards as a kid, you were very cool. But the company that made these Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards had a problem, which is once the kids got their hands on one of these cards, they didn't need to buy any more cards, right? So they couldn't make any more money off these kids. So what do? Well, the first thing they tried was creating new alternative artworks of these existing cards, but they were still the same card, right? So if you wanted the newest, coolest looking Dark Magician, maybe you'd pay money to buy the newest one. Or maybe you'd pay money to get the golden one, right? Wrong. People did not want these cards. So the second thing they tried to do was create new archetypes. For those of you who don't know, an archetype is like a set of cards that look similar and work really well with each other. Right? So an example would be royalty, Q royalty that sits on desserts, or frogs, or Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Chinese literature, or Star Wars crossover with Wizard of Oz, or computer science, right? But as monsters. So really, as you can see here, anything you can think of, right, could be an archetype. And the key with these archetypes is that they were much stronger than each archetype that came before. So if you wanted to play competitively, you had to buy the newest archetypes. And this is called power creep, right? It's a pretty classic way of selling cards for a trading card game. And this really worked, right? So they were making a ton of bank. Yu-Gi-Oh! Still around today. But there was a problem. And that's for people like me who grew up watching the TV, right? We didn't want to play with the new archetypes. We just want to play with Dark Magician and Blue Eyes White Dragon. These people who are now in their 20s to 30s are affectionately called Yui Boomers. So how do you sell cards to these Yui Boomers, right? And that's where the Yu-Gi-Oh! Company stumbled upon their third great idea, Retrains. Just release the same old cards, the same Dark Magician and Blue Eyes White Dragon, but make them better, right? You see all this tiny text at the bottom? That's the new abilities, the new effects of the Dark Magician and Blue Eyes White Dragon, and that makes them competitive in the modern game. Now you can sell these cards to the Yu-Gi Boomers. So Dark Magician and Blue Eyes, they're Paxos. Classic, nostalgic consensus protocols that aren't really good enough in the modern day, right? And these new archetypes, they're new protocols like ePaxos and Mencius. They do much better than the old protocols. But for some reason, we don't want to use them, right? Whether it's because we prefer simplicity or we prefer knowing that the protocols are correct because they've withstood the test of time. And that's where these retrains come in, these protocol rewrites. We can automatically take an old protocol and generate a better one that's still just as correct, but much more powerful. And if you want to learn more about that, scan the code, read the paper, talk to me after, or follow me on Twitter. Thank you.